What's happening, everybody? Welcome to the lab. I'm your host, Joshua Diaz, joined by a very special guest, forensic psychologist, author, and by the way, voted 100 in the two-time books of all time. Very Can you hear me?
Just the music. There you go.
All right.
Yeah, see, people are saying they couldn't hear anything you said.
Yeah, that's what I was hearing.
Well, hi, everyone. I'm Dr. Gary Brucato.
I was talking the whole time, too.
Oh, no, they didn't hear anything, just the music.
Oh, okay. Well, today we have a very special guest, Dr. Gary Brucato, Cold Case Foundation forensic psychologist, also the author of The New Evil, which was, what was it now? You said it was just voted top 100.
Oh, yes. So short form, people who are, book readers know about short form. Short form does this sort of, this list every few years. I don't know if they do it every year, but they had done it, I think, I think in 2021, The New Evil was in the top 100 true crime books of all time. And then they just released the new version, and it was, I think, number 91. So I'm delighted because I'm in the company of some of my great heroes, Ann Burgess and John Douglas and other people. I mean, to have co-written a book that made the top 100 list is an honor. So really, really proud of that.
Yeah, very cool. And also, you can check out Dr. Gary's music page on YouTube, and you would tell us a little bit about that, Dr. Gary.
Oh, well, I've continued to post a mixture of things that I've either composed or that I'm, where I'm just covering music, or even lately doing holiday music. And people have been very kind, sort of sending a couple of dollars for a cup of coffee or something, like a little donation or tip or whatever. And I think that's very cool. And it's not essential, but it's nice. But the most important thing is that people are enjoying the music. That's a good outlet for me, a space to kind of, do something artistic and emotional and kind of block out, some of the darkness of the work. So it's nice to have that little pocket.
Yeah.
And the other thing is I went and recorded something for Investigation Discovery for a show that's going to be an episode, coming out. I can't say who it's about, but it's pretty fascinating. I think it's a case that most people will not know about. And I think it's going to put it sort of on the radar of the true crime community in terms of, like, how did we miss this one? This is extremely fascinating. And actually it's in that spirit that we're doing this second installment today of lesser known serial killer cases. I mean, the idea being that it's very easy to find experts talking about, the Ted Bundys and the John Wayne Gacy's and so forth. But the idea is to sort of put the focus on these lesser known cases to learn from them, dive into them a little bit. And I think the format we used last time of sort of, raising a case, pulling it up on the screen, reading through the history, picking it apart. People found it really fascinating. And I also, before we dive in, I do want to, my heart goes out also to the people at Brown University.
Yes.
There was a mass shooting, or at least a shooting. It was a mass shooting, but there, I think, are 2 confirmed dead. And as of the last count that I saw, 8 people injured. That's a serious mass shooting incident. I mean, 10 people. It's a really big deal. So I just want to say, especially at this time of year and everything, I mean, the fact that there are going to be grieving families and people in critical care, and it's just in that crossover when people are, it's like going to be the holiday break. It's supposed to be like a time of relaxation and happiness, and this had to happen. It's unthinkable. So I'm sure you would also want to extend your,
yeah, those shootings are just gut wrenching every single time. Especially, I mean, we got the holidays, and not that there's a good time for any of that, but it's just
atrocious.
Yeah, it's just terrible. The problem is that for some reason, for some people, the price of life is awfully cheap. And I don't know where that comes from,
Well, we know nothing about who the shooter is at all.
I don't think they even have them.
Right. Well, I had first heard that they had someone in custody, and then in other news reports, it sounded like there was a manhunt. So this is the classic example of, the game of telephone, where you have to be careful, with stuff. When I was doing the mass murder database with Raggy Gergis at Columbia Medical Center, everyone knows probably that we did, because we talk about it all the time, the largest study of mass murder ever done. When we did that, one of the things we learned right away is that if you're relying on media reports, depends on the timing of the media report. If you're looking up newspaper articles from the same day, the victim count is different, partially because the details change constantly as the story unfolds, or people pass away later that were injured, or in other words, you see when you go into a mass murder case the way the media sort of gets it wrong, or the story is evolving. I mean, I don't need to tell you, for simple example, I don't need to tell you how the media sort of botched and altered, for example, the Charlie Kirk story, which is a path I have avoided going down. I don't want to discuss it, but it was quite remarkable. It basically boiled down to where you read the story shaped how you understood it. I find that fascinating, the way the news kind of gets things wrong and alters them and editorializes and politicizes. And you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, definitely.
The emphasis on mental illness versus how the person got the gun, can depend on where the source is, what the source is. So I'm laughing because somebody in the audience said I look like a different person, and I can't figure out why. It's weirding me out. I think I look different. I think I look exactly the same, but
somebody, like, at the beginning of the show, we're like getting ready to go, and whenever you're a couple minutes late, or 10
right.
people, they start busting your balls in the chat right away. I mean, and that's just part of it, and I'm fine with that. But what's annoying is somebody's like, it's just blatant disrespect, and it's just like, yeah, go on with yourself somewhere else. I'm not here to listen to that. It's not disrespect.
Can you imagine anybody caring about such a thing? It's a live show. I mean, these things happen. And listen, I am a person who is a big believer that emotional health, has a lot to do with being able to tolerate in a kind of non-rigid way that nothing in life goes the way you plan, and letting other people understand that, right? And there's something about rigidity that can drive me a little crazy, because it makes people think they're bad people. The reality is, like, life gets in the way. It's just the way it is. I've had people that I treat who are very rigid, and then one day, like, their train breaks down or something and they're late to an appointment, and I'll say, good. You have to tolerate being okay with the fact that I understand that you ran late, and you have to be cool with that you ran late, because that's life. Right. So we selected a couple of pretty disturbing offenders to talk about today, and probably people that are like super into the annals of crime, will know who they are. One of the cases was written about in the New Evil in Category 22. One of them I am writing about for my next book. It's a case that the Cold Case Foundation often discusses as a teaching case. And one of them is just an infamous serial killer case that I have not written about and don't intend to, and I wanted to kind of dive into it today. But I wanted to start, if it is okay, I'd really, really like to start with the case of Gary Heidnik.
Sure.
And I will say, because people seemed, when I looked at the chat from the last serial killer episode, we did like this, and I love these episodes, by the way. One of the things people liked was the little trivia, that kind of got squeezed in. So I will start by saying that Gary Heidnik is one of the offenders who served as the basis for Buffalo Bill in the Silence of the Lambs. So if you remember the character of Buffalo Bill, the offender that kept women in a pit, and then would take their skins, and remember the whole thing from the Silence of the Lambs? Take the skins off and make a woman's suit. Yeah. You transform. Okay. So he was sort of an amalgam, and remember John Douglas consulted, with the author and all that. He was an amalgam of really three people. One being Ted Bundy, a very organized offender, because he used the trick of having a cast on his arm and asking a woman to help him, and then blitzing her. Remember, there's the famous scene where Catherine Martin is in like her parking lot outside of her house, and he's like, he can't lift the furniture. He's oh, would you remember? And then like he hits her. So that's Ted Bundy. He takes that for Ted Bundy. And then the creation of the woman's suit, of course, is from Ed Gein, or Ed Gein, as the public says it. We've talked about the pronunciation issue. That idea of taking the skins off is a very sort of more schizophrenic kind of offender, more chaotic and bizarre kind of offender. And then this idea of keeping the woman in a pit and then drowning her screams out with loud music where she's being kept downstairs in the basement is taken from Gary Heidnik. And we are going to see that this was a deeply, deeply psychopathic man who ultimately found a concrete solution to the question of, why do I keep losing everybody in my life? Okay, and what he comes up with is just absolutely extraordinary. Now, to be honest, since I wrote about it for the New Evil, I think the best thing to do is for me to just read the paragraphs about him.
I think,
if we go and we'll sort of, if you're, do you think people would be cool with listening to a couple of things?
I think people are cool listening to whatever you have to say about this subject, since you are next to it. That's why they're here.
Okay, I thought they were here to comment on my dippity-doo hair. Okay, so what I'd like you to do, is
be true at the same time.
They were doing. So what I'd like you to do is jump in as we're going and comment.
Sure.
Like, I want your thoughts. Okay.
Sure.
And I'm glad that people in the audience are saying they haven't heard of Gary M. Heidnik. Now, you'll notice, if you want to follow along in your book, kids, you can go to page 189 in the New Evil, you'll see that he is in category 22, which means that there is torture. There's extreme torture involved in addition to repeat homicide. Okay, so now hang on to yourselves, because this is quite a story. And then we have some footage of him making some remarks, and you'll see his weird way of talking.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to start with a little reference to the Silence of the Lambs, which I just explained in more detail. Okay, so it says, James Buffalo Bill Gum, the fictitious serial killer created by Thomas Harris for his 1988 novel, The Silence of the Lambs, was a composite of 3 real-life criminals. His technique of feigning an injury to secure the aid of a woman before incapacitating her was drawn from the psychopathic serial killer, rapist, and necrophile Ted Bundy, while his flaying of victims to create a gender-altering suit of flesh was based upon Ed Gein, whom we have already discussed. Gum's imprisonment of abducted females in a cramped pit in his basement was inspired by Gary Michael Heidnik, the scheming torture murderer we will discuss in this third vignette, because that's what it is in that section. Heidnik was born in Eastlake, Ohio, near Cleveland in November of 1943. At the age of 2, his mother claimed gross negligence of duty on the part of his father and filed for divorce. 2 years later, his father and a second wife would gain custody of the child and his brother due to his mother's heavy drinking. Heidnik alleged that his father both emotionally and physically abused him in childhood, punishing him for bedwetting by dangling him out of a window by his ankles or displaying the soiled bed sheets outside the house for public viewing. His father emphatically denied these claims. Whatever the case may be, mental instability is known to have run in Heidnik's family. His alcoholic mother took her own life in 1970, and his brother had a history of numerous psychiatric hospitalizations and suicide attempts. Now, before we proceed, what you already want to be picking up is the idea that there's some unpredictability in the attachments in this guy's life. Because when you talk about somebody's going to have to keep people in a pit to keep them from leaving him, you want to know where he starts getting the idea that he's powerless and can't keep people from abandoning him, right?
Right.
And of course, the bedwetting and the humiliation surrounding that is extremely important, okay? Because you're dealing with somebody who from a young age is being humiliated, emasculated and humiliated by the paternal figure in his life. At least that's the accusation he makes.
Which seems to happen quite a bit with
a lot of these guys. Yeah, attachment problems and humiliation. Yes.
Right.
While still a boy, Heidnik fell from a tree, smashing his cranium and earning the hurtful nickname Football Head at school.
That's nice.
He evaded interacting or even making eye contact with his classmates, once shouting at a well-intentioned female peer who inquired about a homework assignment that she was not worthy enough to communicate with him. Despite these social and emotional difficulties and possible brain damage, he earned high grades and was found to have a nearly genius-level IQ. Increasingly angry, he began torturing the animals he once loved, hanging them from trees. Now you notice the theme of hanging. He was hanging out a window to be humiliated, right? Or the underwear. Now kills animals and they're hanging from the trees, right? So you see the transfer of humiliation onto something smaller than yourself, the taking on of power, and you're the victim, you're the fool. Okay. At age 14, Heidnik enrolled in a Virginia military academy, leaving before graduation. After another brief stint in public school, he dropped out at age 17 and joined the Army, where he was deemed an excellent student by his drill sergeant in basic training. Heidnik worked for 6 months as a medic in West Germany, earning his GED before developing severe headaches, blurred vision, dizziness, and nausea, and being diagnosed with gastroenteritis and possible mental illness. He was prescribed the antipsychotic medication, never know how to pronounce, trifluperazine, and transferred to Valley Forge Medical Center, where he was diagnosed with a schizoid personality. He was honorably discharged from the military. So, what is a schizoid personality? It's a kind of proclivity to choose detachment and solitary activities. It's sort of the style of being the person who would rather like sort of live by yourself or be isolated, and you could have that sort of odd quality of feeling distant from other people, mechanical, a little bit peculiar sometimes because of that detachment from the emotional connections with other people, or sometimes the interest in them. In 1965, Heidnik completed a nursing course and interned at a Philadelphia General Hospital. He worked as a psychiatric nurse at a Veterans Administration Hospital in Coatesville, Pennsylvania, but was terminated due to a pattern of ill-mannered behavior towards patients and inconsistent attendance. He would spend 25 years in and out of psychiatric inpatient units, attempting to take his own life at least 13 times, the first time following the suicide of his mother. In the late 1960s, Heidnik began visiting the Elwyn Institute, a home for developmentally disabled women, whom he sometimes took out for picnics, movies, and shopping before bringing them home for non-consensual sex. Okay, so you have to picture someone going to the home of women who had IQs that were like 80, 60, that kind of thing, right? People that we would call intellectually disabled, and then taking advantage of them sexually. Right. And you notice that he's activated by his mother's suicide, right? The abandonment by her is going to figure into this story. Okay. By 1967, he had piled up enough disability payments to purchase a 3-story house, occupying one floor himself and renting the others to tenants.
Wait. He saved up his disability checks?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. He was a schemer. You'll see. He even becomes a bishop so that he can play with the taxes.
How long did that take?
Psychopath. Well, anyway, a long time. Because remember, he had left the military a couple of years before, and from then has like multiple inpatient visits and is painting himself as very disturbed. Okay. So it says 4 years later, he established the United Church of the Ministries of God, with a congregation consisting of patients from Elwyn who routinely filled his collection baskets at services. He preached to them about a coming race war, expressing disdain for African Americans except as sex objects. Around this time, he began investing in the stock market, earning at least $500,000, which was a lot of money in the 60s, right? And purchasing an assortment of luxury vehicles, including a Rolls Royce. All the while, he dodged taxes by claiming himself to be a bishop. And incidentally, is sexually assaulting these intellectually disabled people, right? In 1976, when his tenants complained about property conditions, he barricaded himself in the basement, armed with several firearms, and took aim at a renter, grazing his face with a bullet. This resulted in a charge of aggravated assault. Heidnik fathered a son by a woman named Gail Linkow, to whom he was married for a period, and a daughter by an illiterate, psychiatrically disabled girlfriend named Anjanette Davidson. Both children were placed into foster care. Shortly after his daughter's birth in 1978, he was arrested for kidnapping Davidson's sister from a psychiatric institution. The woman, who was reported to be severely intellectually disabled, was kept prisoner in a locked storage room in his basement, where he raped and sodomized her, infecting her with gonorrhea. Heidnik spent 4 years in prison for this crime. He was released in 1983 under the supervision of a mental health program. Now, if you think this story can't get any worse, hang on to your seat, okay? At that time, Heidnik was paired by a matrimonial service with Betty Disto of the Philippines, with whom he corresponded for years before they married in 1985. The union rapidly fell apart when he began assaulting and raping his new bride, forcing her to watch him have intercourse with up to 3 women at the same time. He was arrested and charged for these abusive behaviors. Following their separation, Disto gave birth to a son. By late 1986, Heidnik had grown tired of his relationships collapsing and having children taken away from him. He concocted a horrifying solution. He would establish a baby factory, in air quotes, made up of sex slaves in the basement of his Philadelphia home, whom he would abduct, keep captive, beat, torture, and rape at whim. By gathering this harem of young African American women, he hoped to sire a line of children entirely loyal to him. To that end, he brought home a part-time prostitute, Josefina Rivera, whom he choked into unconsciousness after intercourse and restrained with chains. He then confined the victim to a small, cramped pit he had created in the basement floor, with a board placed across the top, weighted with sandbags. Days later, he kidnapped Elwyn patient Sandra Lindsay from a store, forcing the women to watch one another as he assaulted them. They were kept underfed, partially clothed, and barely bathed. To drown out screaming, Heidnik constantly blared loud music through the house. For refusing to keep quiet, one of the women was pulled out of the pit by her hair and badly beaten. On an icy night of December of 1986, Heidnik offered a lift to 19-year-old Lisa Thomas, whom he brought home after a friendly meal at a restaurant. He then strangled her into unconsciousness, and before she came to, assaulted her and chained her up in the basement. She was sexually assaulted and humiliated in front of the other captives before he made the 3 sandwiches. In early January of 1987, he added Deborah Dudley to his growing collection, irked to discover that she was a hostile, uncooperative prisoner. That's his description. Just under 3 weeks later, he added 18-year-old Jacqueline Askins. The women were forced to consume dog food as part of the campaign of systematically dehumanizing them. Now, you have to picture this whole group of women in this tiny hole, right? Not wearing any clothes. And he's going down there and lifting this board weighted down with sandbags. Now the light streams in for the first time, right? They're in the complete darkness. The light streams in, and he's handing them dog food and teaching them how to sort of be submissive. And he's assaulting them like in front of each other to break them. You understand? Right. Okay. Really horrifying stuff. Okay. Heidnik employed a variety of techniques designed to minimize insubordination, including punishing one captive in front of the others, bribing prisoners to inform about one another, and sometimes forcing the women to participate in one another's abuses. Disobedience was punished with sadistic torture. Some of the women were rendered deaf by having screwdrivers driven through the eardrums.
Oh my God.
For some unclear infraction, Lindsay was suspended by her wrist. Notice the suspension theme again, the hanging?
Yeah.
Humiliate? Okay. Lindsay was suspended by her wrist from a pipe for a week, reminiscent of the way his father allegedly dangled him from a window in childhood as a cruel form of discipline for enuresis. Lindsay ultimately died of an untreated fever, after which Heidnik dismembered her with a power saw in a tub. He cooked her ribs in the oven and placed her head in a pot where the flesh was trimmed away, and the pieces were broken up into a blender, boiled, and retained in his freezer. These were gradually fed to his two dogs, and unimaginably to the other captives, mixed in with their other food. When Heidnik's neighbors complained about the terrible smell wafting from Heidnik's home, he was interrogated by the police, whom he bamboozled with a fib about having burned the roast he was preparing for supper. Rivera privately resolved that she would beat Heidnik at his own psychological game. One day, as a disciplinary technique, he forced the women to stand in the pit and flooded it with water. Now, shades of him bedwetting, right?
Right.
Okay.
I didn't even think about that.
Right. Yeah. So he floods it with water. He then covered it with plywood prepared with a small aperture through which he snaked a stripped extension cord to electrocute them. Seizing on the opportunity, Rivera assisted him. Then, after Dudley died from the torture, now he's a serial killer, right? Rivera, well, depends on the break there was between the two victims, but he's technically a serial killer because I think there's a cooling off period. Seizing on the opportunity, Rivera assisted him. Then, after Dudley died from the torture, Rivera accompanied Heidnik to discard of the body in a New Jersey state park. So that means she's now figured out how to get out of the house by working with him. Okay. When she agreed to sign a document stating that she had participated in the victim's death, she fully secured his trust. After convincing him I was on his side, she would say years later, he gradually let me out of the chains and upstairs. He thought I was his partner. She also assisted him in luring an acquaintance, Agnes Adams, to the home to be added to the pit. She was rewarded with being permitted to watch movies outside of the slave area and to be assaulted in what Heidnik considered a more comfortable environment. When Heidnik granted Rivera permission to visit her family, she immediately fled to her boyfriend, and the two led authorities to her captor. When police raided his home, they found human remains in a freezer and in the drains, his bedroom walls decorated with currency, and the surviving women in the foul-smelling pit in Heidnik's basement. The killer was arrested attempting to hang himself, there's the hanging again, when in police custody. Heidnik's defense team attempted to portray him as not guilty of abducting, raping, and torturing women by reason of insanity, but this was successfully rebutted. His psychopathic traits and behaviors can hardly be denied. While Heidnik sometimes displayed signs of serious mental illness, it is known that he cleverly took advantage of his psychiatric diagnosis he acquired while in the army, as well as the intellectually disabled women of his so-called church, collected benefits and contributions which he parlayed into a small fortune by way of shrewd investments. It also emerged during proceedings that at the time Rivera was forced to sign her confession, quote unquote, Heidnik assured her that if she were arrested, he would simply go to court and, quote, act crazy by saluting the judge, among other things. He explained that, quote, somewhere in the law, it states that if a person acts crazy for a certain amount of years, his case eventually gets thrown out. So we're almost done.
That's not true.
Well, it's certainly true that he was learning how to malinger. You know, he had studied how to malinger. In a series of self-absorbed letters, just like, I mean, isn't this fascinating, by the way?
Yeah, this guy.
I mean, it's fascinating. And I'm, you know, reading it back myself, I'm like,
this guy's
I
crazy.
don't know how I wrote this book, you know. In a series of self-absorbed letters to psychologist Dr. Jack A. Apsh, Heidnik vehemently denied ever having been a serial killer, describing the deaths of Lindsay and Dudley as purely accidental, quote unquote. If he had intentionally desired to kill the women, he explained, he would have employed different methods. Then, when it was noted during a televised interview that his abuse and neglect were painful to his victims, he remarked, "I hope so. You know, that's what I was trying to achieve, to make them behave." Heidnik, who proved utterly unremorseful, was convicted and sentenced to death, carried out by lethal injection in 1999. When the killer's father, was informed of his son's fate in 1988, he reportedly replied, "I'm not interested." Pertinent to discussion of Heidnick's case is the work of the previously referenced researcher, Dr. Ann Burgess, and her colleagues. Now, of course, I work every day with Ann. In a groundbreaking 1986 article, they describe patterns of social environments and formative experiences among known serial killers, proposing a motivational model of sexual homicide. In their youths, these offenders tend to fail to bond with their primary caregivers and ultimately with people in general. They're far more likely than the average child to have experienced parental divorce, abandonment or rejection by one parent or both, emotional, physical, or sexual abuse, the death of a parent, or severe illness. The negative effects of these experiences are typically compounded by a paucity of friends or other social supports, the lack of positive role models, and a few protective factors such as talent or skills which might help elevate their self-esteem. This leads to overwhelming feelings of sadness, despair, and helplessness. Such children subsequently begin to engage in destructive behaviors such as fire setting, cruelty to animals, vandalism, burglary, assault, and sadistic acts. Moreover, they tend to possess negative personality traits such as anger, hostility, and aggression, entitlement, rebelliousness, cynicism, dishonesty, and a general sense of rejection by society. They're generally socially withdrawn and lack confidence, retreating into a fantasy world, which only intensifies over time. Their fantasies tend to help them to compensate for feelings of inadequacy in the actual world and typically revolve around themes of dominance, control, power, violence, mutilation, torture, death, rape, and revenge. Eventually, these fantasies are not adequate to serve the individual's psychological needs, and the fantasy, bizarre or sadistic as it might be, is actually played out in real life. Considering these typical features, Heidnick's early life seems a virtual recipe for future violent behavior, and his trajectory towards sexual sadism and serial killing is highly consistent with the model described by Dr. Burgess and her colleagues. Some additional points should be made about his formative experiences. First, his mother suffered from alcoholism. Alcohol or drug dependency by one or both parents could be a major contributor to future serial murder. Additionally, his mother and brother's suicidality, as well as his brother's repeated psychiatric hospitalizations, indicated a strong genetic loading for psychopathology. Heidnick's head injury in childhood may also have affected his future behaviors, either by way of actual cortical damage or by deepening of feelings of resentment and inferiority due to ridicule he experienced surrounding his misshapen cranium. It is of further note that Heidnick exhibited both bedwetting and animal torture in childhood. Both of these traits are included in the well-known triad of childhood predictors of future violent offenses, particularly of social nature, proposed by Dr. John M. MacDonald and in his controversial triad, alongside fire setting. We made brief reference to this construct in our earlier discussion of serial murder. By no means does childhood enuresis universally foretell future aggressive behavior. It has been hypothesized, however, that persistent bedwetting past age 5, especially if associated with humiliation or belittlement by parents or adults, may serve as a sort of gateway to violence, leading to arson or animal cruelty as a means of expressing frustration. This appears to be consistent with Heidnick's case. Consider the symbolism. Now, here I drive home what I've been saying throughout. His father allegedly hanged him from a window. He hanged animals from trees. Later in life, he would hang and kill a woman. Moreover, the transition from abuse to animal torture to torturing a woman resulted in punitive incarceration and public shame, and suddenly all of the childhood humiliation and abuse he was transferring to his victims returned to himself, culminating in trying to hang himself in jail, nearly completing a terrible cycle. As a final comment, it is intriguing to note, and I think I was the first person to ever point this out about this case, and I've heard other people say it after I figured this out. As a final comment, it is intriguing to note that Rivera was abducted 3 days after Heidnick's birthday and 2 days before Thanksgiving in 1986, Thomas 2 days before Christmas, and Dudley just after New Year's Day. One wonders if dates and seasons associated with family, friends, and happiness triggered profound feelings of loneliness and resentment of the mother, significant others, and children he had lost. Did he seek to, quote, collect women and children? whom he could literally prevent by force from leaving him? Interestingly, Josefina Rivera, who came to know him intimately, attributed her ability to dupe her captor to his longing for human contact. Heidnik was lonely, she astutely observed. That's the first thing I realized about him. That's why he wanted all those babies. See? Now, isn't that fascinating?
Yeah, disturbing.
But I think, we said it and we laid it out in a very sort of professional way and all that. And I think it would be helpful to show a little footage of him so you see what these people would have experienced. Absolutely. But just think, Josh, out of all the things that I just said, what part of that story jumped out at you as the most horrific? Because people argue about what the worst part was.
I mean, I would think that the taking advantage of the
intellectually disabled women. Yeah.
That's I mean, is that what you think?
Well, I mean, look.
But then not only just taking advantage, but it's going far beyond.
What about that he was taking the money from them?
That too. Everything.
And what about that he was feeding them a corpse?
Everything that he did to them was
pretty bad. I'm sorry, but can you imagine that they tried to paint this guy as some kind of victim instead of I mean, look,
of course.
I understand that he had a rough life, okay? Sure. But he was so extra, so sadistic. I mean, Josh, filling that pit with water, they were already cramped, naked, the whole thing, freezing cold probably, cramped in a group, and then pouring water down there and snaking an electrical wire to zap them.
Crazy.
Is pretty unbelievable. And what about getting one of the women to do it to the others?
Yeah, I mean, everything that he did was horrific. I mean,
right.
It's hard to point out one specific thing, to be honest.
Right.
But taking advantage of intellectually disabled people, and then just taking advantage of them, but just going so far beyond.
Right. And also, just because there's always one, there's always the person who hears you say something and literally hears wrong, like what you said. If you listen, go back and listen. What I said in the text very clearly is that bedwetting is not uniformly a predictor of violence. It can serve as a gateway in a person with this kind of personality because the humiliation that could be associated with can trigger you if you already are this kind of character. And I will say, if you look at that McDonald triad, what meta-analysis of it says, where they take like all the studies on a subject and put them together, or a lot of them, and try to see how true the data is as a collective group, what we learned is that that triad really only works when you have two or more of the traits. So if it has to be like you're bedwetting and you're setting fires, you're torturing animals and you're bedwetting, or it can't be just like one of them. And this guy had all of them. And point of fact, I think interviewing him probably was one of the things that led to that whole idea that serial killers do these things. I mean, he was like the classic, like one of the prototypes for the idea that those things are associated with these killers. I mean, the idea predated him, but that it was perpetuated is because people like him were saying, yeah, I did that. I did all of them, Now, if you just play that little video clip that I sent you, it's from I think someone else's program. So shout out to whoever originally aired it. But it was like on a one of those evening programs, and
just enough to know that was a conscious act on my part, and that was essentially the reason to drown out that noise. For sure. Well, they might like a little entertainment too. At first, I tried to make it nice, right?
Yeah, how did you do that?
I was holding parties there for one thing. I consciously knew I was trying to hide the evidence. Nothing was working. I was trying to find something that worked that would make them shut up to stop hollering.
So I could aggressive kind of infliction of pain on these women.
I was trying to find something that would make them behave.
But it was painful to them.
I hope so. That's what I was trying to achieve, to make them behave. They go down in the hole in the morning, board goes over the top of the hole with the sandbags and et cetera, and then they stay down there till roughly about 8 at night. I dismembered the body and I started burning it on the stove. If I was a torturer, why would I have waited so long to start a torture? The torture and the pains didn't start until really after January 29th. I'm sitting there, trying to figure out what the hell to do, what the to do, I started chopping up the body.
You see how, in rationalizing that it's the behavioral issue of the victim that makes you do cruel things, in a way, he's making an excuse for the father that he felt was abusive. See, that ultimately he was just trying to make me behave.
Right. Sort of.
Not that he didn't love me, he just wanted me to behave. It was just being a good dad.
I think that,
right.
with like the bedwetting stuff as well, it's more of wetting the bed, being humiliated by your your parental figure, and not that inherently makes you a violent person, but if you have sort of that already in you, it's not going to help anything.
Mm-hmm.
And
well, I think that's the idea I was trying to convey, is that it has to happen in a context. It's not like you're a bedwetter, so you're, that's a myth, but I think that video clip, can you imagine talking to that guy? I mean, there's absolutely no remorse.
I couldn't talk to him.
There's no remorse. Absolutely no remorse. I mean, you see what I mean, that he is basically a psychopathic character.
Oh yeah, no question.
There is no, and you notice those eyes.
Yeah, he's terrible. Like everything about him, his aura, and just the way he speaks, and there's no, he doesn't feel he doesn't feel bad about what he's done at all.
No, he's not a human. It doesn't feel like there's a human in there.
How long were the women there until he was caught?
Right. So, but what do you think about my hypothesizing that the center of this whole thing was really a person with attachment problems? That it basically comes down to like a weird, concrete way of making people dependent on you, afraid to leave, and totally under your control. I mean, that seems to be the gist, right?
Yeah, it's Dahmer.
Right. So, but it gets, yeah, exactly. That's a good point. So what I'm getting at is, one of the things that I am trying to introduce more and more into the world of people who talk about these offenders, and I'm going to be talking about this at length in my next book, is that I want to introduce the notion that there is too much emphasis on sex with these people, like as if the point is like a paraphilic sexual gratification from this violence, but it's simply one of many manifestations of a need to assert control over people, precisely because you've always found your objects unpredictable, which goes right to the point Ann Burgess was making, that there is this conspicuous lack of stability in the lives of these people. So it looks like is like they get angry about those things, and having a kind of psychopathic, sadistic style, they're willing to go about securing control over other people in ways that we wouldn't. Actually, there are some shades of that in Kohberger, right? With Kohberger being a person who clearly couldn't figure out how to get people,
right?
Right. So what mechanisms did he use to render people predictable? Well, he literally turned them into, like, amoeba in a petri dish that he could observe. And watched them, and studied them with an alien consciousness, which is why as I always say, I think there was a fascinating metaphor in him claiming he was stargazing, because I think that's exactly how he saw the woman that I believe honed in on and wanted to hurt, was that she was untouchable, the way you study a star, and if you touched it, it would destroy you, it would disintegrate you. Well, so you want to understand that, and I think Heidnik also has that kind of mechanical detachment, where he's just basically seeing it like, I want to know what independent variable to manipulate to get these people to behave. How do I get the outcome? And so he makes a very interesting point. He goes out of his way and says, look, if I was a torturer, why did I only start to do it then? Like, wouldn't I have always done it? Whatever. What he's basically saying is, some people engage in sadistic behaviors not because they're getting psychosexual enjoyment out of it, but because it's a kind of experimentation with how to achieve what it is they're trying to achieve. And I think that's actually true. There are some people that engage in some of these behaviors that we think of as having a sexual basis, because they're experimenting and learning, for example, what's the easiest way to get away with this crime. Hazelwood, for example, demonstrated that one of the primary reasons for a serial killer to kill a victim after sexual assault is not that the murder is thrilling sexually, but that you're getting rid of the victim. You're getting rid of the witness. Or you've asserted too much control over a force, and they die. But we people who study serial killers have always thought, well, maybe some of the killing is the sexual thrill in and of itself. That's true for some people, but for most of them it isn't. For most of them, it's what you do when they're alive.
Right.
So you want to understand this idea that some of what you're seeing in these people is not part of the psychosexual thrill. It's also like, how do I render this person predictable? Where can I leave their body so I always know where it is and they can never leave me? How can I keep a trophy of them? How do I eat them so they're with me forever? In other words, it's the stabilization of objects. Then it's psychosexual. You see?
And people were wondering in the chat how he was caught.
How Gary Heidnik was caught? Oh, it said we went through that. It was because the woman who convinced him to allow her to assist him ran off and told her boyfriend.
Correct. Yeah.
The boyfriend came and then told the police, and they came and found him. So I think it's certainly also sexual, but the sexual stuff is a series. It stems from a series of associations of those behaviors with power, domination, manipulation, control, etc. But he is such an absolutely fascinating case because he's so unique in the annals of crime. He's not the first person to keep a pit. There are others who've done that.
Really?
There are other offenders who've kept pits, and there are offenders who fantasize about keeping pits. And there are works of literature that contain that theme. But the idea of like the oubliette or the dungeon where the person goes to be kind of forgotten. That was the word I used to describe the room Summer Wells lived in. That it looked like an oubliette or like a dungeon, like where you go to be forgotten, like a hole, So now, so what do you think about that case? I mean, that had you ever heard of it before?
I'd heard of Gary Heidnik, but not in detail quite like that. And
you won't forget it now.
You're probably right. I probably won't.
Now, I would like to make a suggestion because this is what we did last time. Because we have to sort of break up the discussion of the cases tonight because they're just going to get worse, and it can make people feel really overwhelmed. Yeah. And so, trigger alert, right? Trigger warning. What we did last time, and I think it was very smart, was we sort of broke it up by having people call in and ask questions about the case and whatever. And if they wanted to kind of go off topic, whatever, and then we would go to another case. I think we should do that because if we move to the next guy that I have in mind, it's a lot, to go from that to sort of the way that we didn't write the New Evil starting with the 22s for a reason. You build up because otherwise it's too much, for the brain to handle. So let's take a little breather from Mr. Heidnik and see if anybody has any questions about serial killers generally or about the Heidnik case or thoughts about it, and then we can talk about another one. Anyone?
So, the link is pinned at the top of the chat, and feel free to hit that link and call in.
Yeah, people think he's finding it hard.
I mean, he's absolutely despicable. It's just
he's pretty bad. I mean, do you have any sympathy from him? A lot of people do.
No,
not me.
No, I don't have any.
Set the fly. Yeah, I know. Do you notice, by the way, that he was a collector of paper money? I found that torturers, Category 22 torturers, they have proclivity to always collect something, and I think it's because a lot of torture is actually about intellectual stimulation. Torturers, I've found in my own work, although I haven't published it, have higher IQs. The Category 22s have higher intellects. I think it's because these are people who are drawing intellectual stimulation from what they're doing to the
Mhm.
victim. They're enjoying it and kind of being titillated by the experimentation and the what happens when I do this to that. You can see that kind of autistic schizoid style detachment. They're not autistic. I mean that they're mechanically detached. Schizoid autistic detachment, excuse me, where they're kind of looking at you like a bug, and kind of going, gee, I don't really understand people. I wonder what happens when I do that to a person.
Right.
And what's interesting about that is it's a perversion of the idea of empathy, because you have to feel that it would hurt someone to even want to hurt them that way, right? So you go, oh, you know what I bet would hurt? If I snake this electrical wire. See, now that's where you have to call BS on Heidnik, because he's claiming in that interview, it wasn't sadism. I just wanted to control them.
Right.
Okay. Was it necessary to electrocute them? He could have gone down there with a gun. You see what I'm saying? It wasn't necessary. That's where the extra comes in that is so characteristic of evil, is that he was enjoying that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that was for his own enjoyment, nothing else. Can you ask if he's interviewed the Green River Killer Ridgway?
I mean, the one who's about to go tripping off the mortal coil.
Yeah.
I heard he's not doing very well, Mr. Heidnik. I mean, Mr. Ridgway.
Yeah. Have you ever interviewed him?
No. He is somebody. I have a document from him, but never interviewed him. He is another one of these guys that, like, there's the question of his intellect, being low and all that, But there's a lot to say about Ridgway. But is a person going to call in?
Yeah, we got some.
No. To answer that very quickly, no, I never did, and I would have liked to have, because in some ways he is like the garden variety, like, sort of blueprint of that type of offender. You could learn a lot from him. In fact, they famously had Bundy helping to catch the Green River Killer by giving opinions about what this offender was doing before they caught him, which of course partially inspires the idea of having Hannibal Lecter give thoughts about Jane Gum. So do we have the number there for people to call in?
We have a call right here.
Mm-hmm.
Mab investigates. What's happening, Mab?
Oh, do you know each other?
Well, he just bounced off, so
Mab? Interesting name.
He left. I don't know.
Okay.
We had 3 calls. 2 of them dropped, and one says device not connected.
Okay, let's give him a moment. I never heard of Mab Investigate. Yeah. Is that a podcast?
I believe it's a YouTube channel, yeah.
Interesting.
Let's see here. Melissa 1984, it says that you dropped, or it says your device isn't connected.
Do you think that's the Melissa that has called in previously?
I don't know. It's hard to say. Hold on. All right, let's go back to Mab. Mab, are you there?
Yeah.
Oh, there you are. Mab. How you doing?
How you guys doing?
Good.
Doing pretty good.
Uh-huh. Are you a podcaster?
Yeah, I have a little tiny true crime channel.
Cool. All right. Well, that sounds interesting. Tell us about it a little bit, about the kinds of things you like to cover and all that.
Well, I cover, different kinds of true crime cases, but I also do a lot of fabrication and stuff like that around my house. I'm going to have to do a separate channel for that.
Interesting.
Because they don't really work well together.
Okay. Sounds interesting. Well, all right. So tell us a little bit about what you'd like to discuss.
Interesting. I find a lot of our activities or our behaviors come from our tribal days, where you get kicked out of, essentially not loved or excluded or abandoned in the tribal days. That meant you were going to die. And I think there's a kind of a link there in our brains to that time when those things were life or death decisions, or life or death issues. This guy, what's his name again?
Gary Heidnick. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Heisnick.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he seemed like a real treat.
Oh.
And so I had a pit in his basement. Kept the women down. This was all about abandonment.
Yes, I agree. I think that's 100% correct. That's been my interpretation, which I think has been catching on in how people think about him. But to me, it's very clear that it's about abandonment. Yes, I agree with you 100%. Mm-hmm.
Totally about abandonment. And his biggest thing was clinging on to these women so that, I don't know, he could have his way with them and torture them and get back at his parents and get back at those feelings he had to suffer through as an adolescent and a child. Yeah, that's kind of my take on it.
Right. Yeah. He kept having kids taken away and wives leave him.
Did he actually produce any babies in that factory?
No, but he did have children that he sired by women before that, and everybody kept getting taken from him. You have to understand, and Josh, I'm sure you caught this when we read it through. You have to understand that we're dealing with a person here who was assaulting the wife that he had from, I think, the Philippines, and forcing her to watch him with other women because he obviously had a kink. I mean, that was happening in the pit too, right? Making one woman watch you with the other women watch you with whoever it is you're assaulting, right? So he has some exhibitionistic kind of kink that's also part of this. And remember, he had been displayed, according to his abuse narrative, put out for people to laugh at and stare at and whatever. So this idea of being on display, having supposed to be private and intimate out in the open figures somehow into this guy's psychology. And you have to understand, if you were to say to this guy, why did that wife leave you and take the kid with her? His answer would be, well, she was sort of a jerk. She didn't love me. She walked out on me, whatever. No conscious awareness. I mean, maybe he had a conscious awareness, but he never admits it, that he was abusing her in any way.
Yeah.
And so that I think he, this is where this thing of having a social skills problem, a la Koberger comes in, is that this type doesn't understand that they are the reason that they have these problems. It's everybody else, right? So it's like
it's everybody else's fault,
right? If you were to go, I mean, Josh, what do you think would happen? Let's say right now, Koberger, he calls into the show, and you say, because you're good at like confronting people on the air about things, right? And you're like, listen, Brian, why do you think you had these problems? Whatever. What do you think his answer would be?
It would have to do something to do with his mom and people not liking him.
It would be everybody else. That everybody was too stupid to appreciate him.
Nobody likes him, and he can't understand why. He doesn't know why he's off-putting. He doesn't know why he's looked at the way that he is, and
he has no coping skills.
None.
No coping skills. You got it. That's a very clever way to put it. I agree. No coping skills and no support.
No coping skills, no problem-solving ability, no plan for the future. All thoughts of what happened to me and that made me such a miserable piece of shit.
Yeah. Well, what you're touching on is something Josh talked about on one of the last episodes I was on with him and Chris McDonough. And I don't want to open that can of worms again, but one of these things that happened on the episode was that somebody was asking Josh about his childhood experience with his dad and the whole thing. And this whole question came up of, well, what do you do when the person doesn't seem to have any insight that they even did anything? They don't apologize. They don't whatever. It gets right to the heart of this is that for some people, there is so little insight. It's everybody else. Yeah. And those people take these extreme measures to try to keep people in their lives because they don't know how to do it otherwise. They don't have any social skills. You see?
Stalkers are an example of that.
Right. Yeah. So, Josh, I mean, do you understand what I'm saying? Like that it's like so you go, okay, well, the only way I could do this is to be violent.
Sure.
And and you talked about that
Yeah.
in that story of your father. So I think, and then it gets very complicated. I mean, the whole
People will do anything.
right.
People like this will do anything to impose their will. And if sweet talking doesn't work, if their charm doesn't work,
Exactly.
if they're, luring them with, gifts or whatever doesn't work, then they'll go take it. I mean, it's just, and they do it.
You got it. And that's what the caller is suggesting. And I agree 100%, is that the origins of that are in these people's childhood and this kind of powerlessness to keep anybody around, not only because the people around them are hurting them and abandoning them, but also because there's some kind of problem with social skills.
Yeah.
And wrong with Hyde. And I'm sure that was true with Kohlberger too. I mean, Kohlberger is technically a mass murderer, but I've always said he had he looked a lot like a serial killer in his makeup.
I think he is a serial killer.
Well,
I think there
I don't think killed previously.
Yeah. I think he at least did 2 before.
Oh, you do?
Yeah.
No, I'm not inclined to think that, but I think he would have. He might have.
I did some pretty heavy research. Well, somebody else did pretty heavy research, and I saw the presentation. But a little south of there were 2 people who were bludgeoned with knives that had just been to vegan restaurants. I don't know if that's a tie-in or not, but
where did you hear about that? That's the first I've ever heard that. Tell us about that. You're sharing something I've never heard before.
Yeah, it was a podcast I was listening to, and this person, had called up the cases and everything. It was pretty wild. But I mean, if it was your first time, would you take on an unknown house full of all these people, or would you practice a little bit first?
Well, I think you're raising a very interesting question. I'm not so sure it's safe to assume that he thought all those people were going to be there.
That's safe to assume.
Right. See, my hypothesis had always been, and I'm yet to see it disproved. My hypothesis was that there was some mechanism of surveilling or knowing what was going on in that house.
Yeah.
And on the night that he decided to go in for the one victim, I'm convinced he was going in for one victim, who I personally think was Maddie. I think he had to shut off whatever that was on the phone or whatever, so that by the time he gets there, there are a whole slew of people present and awake, or even the house, that is to say, that he doesn't anticipate.
I think he may have had a camera somewhere or something.
Well, maybe some way of listening, maybe tapping the Wi-Fi. Who knows? But I think there must have been some mechanism of watching, and then it failed.
Have you ever thought of maybe he had an accomplice in just the surveillance?
No, because if that guy were capable of having a friend in this world, he wouldn't have had to do this.
Yeah,
I mean, that's how you want to think of it, right? This guy couldn't make a connection with anybody to save his life. You think he was going to be capable of doing? So no, I think he was a lone wolf, and and the reason it's interesting to sort of make this comparison is that the common denominator with a Heidnik type is being a bright guy who just can't make a science out of people, and then takes some weird approach, right? Well, all right, I know how I'll keep you, right? Like Dahmer did. I'll eat you. That's how I'll keep you. I know how I'll keep you. I'll keep you in a pit. I know how I'll keep you. I'll murder you. I'll eat you. I'll keep your body parts. I'll, whatever.
Yeah, so but the things that they're actually after,
right?
They don't get in a fully. It doesn't satiate their desire, only partially.
Well, isn't it true for all of us in this world that if we don't have the love of anybody, predictably and stably, we will compensate in some way? How many behaviors you see people, I mean, that become neurotic or pathological for people are really overcompensations? Large amounts of money, large amounts of sex, large amounts of drugs, alcohol, gambling, shopping, social media, whatever, are these pathetic attempts to compensate for this void.
Yeah.
And that there is no question in my mind. And I think that, I remember with Kohlberger, when I initially developed the profile of him, whatever, I wrote in my journal, and I keep expensive journals, and I was looking at it recently, and I wrote in the journal, I think kind of weirdly, presciently, because I think it turned out to be quite true. I wrote in there that whoever did this reminded me of Francis Bacon, the famous author and philosopher, and Francis Bacon said, "A crowd is not company, and faces are but a gallery of pictures, and music is but a tinkling cymbal if I have not love."
Yep.
And I think that that's exactly true. Incidentally, it is an interesting little parallel that Francis Bacon died experimenting in a peculiar way with chickens, which led to his death.
Really?
Yes, he was a sort of weird scientific guy, and he was experimenting with stuffing
doodle doo in there, huh?
Large amounts of ice, and he wound up, if I understand it, contracting illness and dying. So, something about those mechanical detached types and their experimentation that is kind of fascinating. So, but
Yeah.
I think that Heidnik is the classic example of this type, and this is what Michael Stone and I call schizoid autistic detachment. The scientific schizoid autistic detachment. It's nothing to do with autism.
Schizoid autistic
detachment. It is the intellectualized, unemotional detachment from the feelings of other people, where you can view them like frog in a tray that you experiment.
If they had normal emotions, it wouldn't be possible.
Wouldn't be possible. And it's interesting when you think about for example, the carvings, the cuts on Ethan. Why were those necessary? I thought of that as a kind of type of experimentation. But anyway, so let's move on from that. But I think, it sounds like you hit the nail on the head. And in your own work, when you do your podcast, you may want to think about this idea about how creating loving attachments with people may, in some way that we're unaware of, prevent someone from going out and taking some desperate measure to a sense of power and predictability. We just don't know.
It all starts with that. I agree, and it leads sometimes into drugs, which leads sometimes into other behaviors that you do after you become drugs. But it all starts from that fundamental level.
Absolutely, and So, and don't think for a minute that Heidnik didn't study methods of control and domination through group torture and all that. There's no question in my mind that he was analyzing how to do that and learning how to do it. So, all right, well, thank you. It was a pleasure to talk to you. Your podcast, as soon as I have a minute, I wrote it down, and I'm gonna
it's just called Map.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm just getting started, and it's kind of cool.
Somewhere.
All right, Josh. See you later.
Thanks, Matt.
Bye. Right. Josh, how long ago did you start your podcast?
Which one?
The Lab.
2021? No, 2020. It's
been that long, huh? Wow. And the After Dark?
Couple years.
Fascinating. Well, so it took. So you're adding like how many new viewers a year?
Well, I had a different channel before where I had like 20,000 subscribers, and then I changed it. So I don't know. I really don't keep up with it, to be honest with you.
Well, it looks like you're doing quite well. I mean, aren't you like moving towards like something like 6 digits of viewers?
Maybe. Yeah, 40.
Is it
40,000?
Is it true? I heard, someone who has a podcast talking about Summer Wells or whatever. I heard the person say that when you hit 100,000 viewers, that YouTube sends you like a plaque.
Yeah, I guess they do. Yeah.
Is that true?
Yeah.
What does that plaque say?
I don't know. It just says congratulations on reaching 100,000 subscribers.
Oh, boy. Really?
Yeah, everybody does. Well, everybody that gets 100,000. Yeah.
Oh my Lord! I wouldn't even know what to say to 100,000 people. I could barely handle one.
Well, we got let's get another call in here.
Yeah,
Laura, go ahead.
Mm-hmm. Hey.
Hello. How are you?
Hello from Washington.
Hello.
Washington, D.C. or Washington State?
Washington State. How are you guys?
Boy, have you had a lot of interesting crime there.
Oh God, tell me.
Of course, if you meant Washington D.C., that'd be even more.
Oh yeah. Well, I grew up. I was born in California, so there's a whole slew of stuff going on down there. Um,
Let me grab my gloves.
yeah, I'm calling in because of Daryl Brooks.
Okay.
Remember that picture of him when he was driving through the crowd? That one solo shot.
Let's see if I have the photo.
It's just one solo shot, and it's just because of the mass shootings that are going on right now that it brings me back to Daryl Brooks. And it's always around this time of Christmas that it seems to come up.
Yeah.
But what?
Because you're talking about because of the parade attack and
Right.
what was it? How do you pronounce it? Waukesha?
What?
How do you pronounce where it happened? What is it pronounced like Waukesha?
Oh,
I have no idea how to pronounce it. I'm actually fascinated, and I'm going to finally hear how to say it.
how do you pronounce that?
I have no idea. If you don't know, I certainly don't know.
Oh, well, I don't.
It's like Waukesha. Waukesha.
Washna?
Is that how you say it?
Washna?
Oh wait, somebody in the audience is trying to tell us Waukesha. Apparently, it's pronounced Waukesha.
Oh,
learning something today. Okay. Oh, look at that. Look at all these different pronunciations we're getting. This is hilarious. I honestly cannot pronounce it, but okay. So why don't you summarize for people the case, because they don't know who you're talking about. Just tell a little bit about what Daryl Brooks did.
Oh, Daryl Brooks is a sociopath who got into an argument with his girlfriend, and he was just horrible. God, he was horrible.
You're calling him a sociopath. I'm not saying that.
I'm calling him a sociopath.
Okay, all right.
Manipulative, horrible person.
Okay, so he was
one of those guys.
Right into Washington. Maybe
one of those guys.
Yeah.
Anyways, got into a fight with his girlfriend and decided to drive through a Christmas parade.
Right.
Because he was mad, I guess. And I don't know how many people he killed, but he just casually drove through this Christmas parade and just killed women and kids, little kids and men, just all that were marching in this parade. And then drove off.
Now in my own work in the mass murder database, and he'd be in there. We found that when mass murder is committed by anything other than a gun, it's far more likely that the person was behaving out of some sort of emotional, psychiatric kind of distress. And it is interesting to think about if the idea here is that this is a person who had essentially no coping skills for dealing with a relationship conflict or experience some kind of envy or whatever. But there's no question. I mean, jumping in your car and kind of doing this, you'd want to know if it was planned, like screw all these people, they're together for the holiday. If I can't have it, they can't have it. Or if it was just a person who just jumps in the vehicle impulsively and does it.
Well,
right?
You seem like the type of guy that
drugs or alcohol. I mean, that there is that too. I had to remind myself. Was he? Do you remember if he was intoxicated or using drugs?
I think he smokes weed. He smoked weed. I don't think he was on a lot of pills, but he was a very controlling person towards women. He was very abusive and he was very controlling.
Yeah, he was a jerk off.
Yeah, thank you, Josh.
You're welcome.
Yeah, I agree.
That's a technical term.
Yeah, well, let me tell you something about Daryl Brooks. They should have canceled his trial and threw him in the hole until he could act proper during
that pit.
Right, but he has anger issues.
I don't care.
Oh yeah.
I'm saying there's anger and self-control issues. There's something to that.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean that he didn't know what he was doing. I'm just saying he has that explosive kind of quality. I mean, clearly.
Right. And now he keeps it clean, and it's just he's a pile.
What did he get? Like 700 years or something?
Something, yeah, something like that. Something insane. But he deserves every bit of it. And he's lucky he didn't. He's lucky that the state didn't have the death penalty, because he's a prime candidate.
Right.
Oh,
But the most important thing to remember about that case was that my understanding is that he did not show any remorse.
No,
Is that correct?
none.
No,
Right.
none.
That's very important. That's very important, because you're not talking about a situation where somebody's going like, because with mass murderers generally, unless they're a little bit more psychopathic or whatever, when they get emotionally overwhelmed and they go out and they do what they do, usually when it's over, if the person is alive, they will often regret it, which is very different than a serial killer, right? Like if you go in and you talk to an incarcerated offender who's committed mass murder, a lot of times they're going to say, look, I just got overwhelmed and I didn't know what to do. And I just, and then you get the type who's more psychopathic that says, I planned it for a couple of months and I was like, screw these people, that kind of thing. And those are the ones who don't have any remorse. This guy, I mean, he's like an icicle. So whatever was going on with him, there's a crossing of having no coping skills and anger about losing control in some relationships or whatever, crossing over into some personality stuff that, is obviously there at baseline, right? Being controlling, being angry, being explosive, being manipulative, that just seems to be there at baseline, unless I'm very much.
But that Josh, that one picture of him driving through the crowd, where it's just that side picture of him it looks like he's just driving through the park.
Yeah.
Right.
On a sunny day.
Right.
That was,
driving through the park on a sunny day. That's
like he's just enjoying. It's like he's just
terrible person.
Right.
That nothing's really happening, that he's just having a nice drive.
But consistent with my point about that people who choose ways of committing mass murder other than a gun are more likely to have an honest to God mental illness diagnosis. Darrell Brooks was diagnosed in childhood with bipolar disorder. He was if that is true, this is an emotionally dysregulated person. In other words, that's what I'm trying to tell you. Like, even from a profiling perspective, one of the great insights we gained from that work on mass murder is that, like, you could tell from the weapon choice in a mass murder that's unsolved whether the person is more likely to be acting out of at least partially from some mental illness element, or if they're just some kind of personality disordered person who decided to do it for amusement or pleasure or to even the score or whatever. So it's a kind of interesting because, consistent with that, he had that wasn't causal. The mental illness does not explain it, but he did, and if I remember correctly, he withdrew a mental health plea, right?
Yes.
Right. And what was the reason for that? Do you know why he withdrew the plea? Do you know, Josh?
No, I have no idea.
Yeah, I want to look it up.
I couldn't stand that trial.
Yeah. It was
a horrible trial.
Where is he?
You couldn't stop watching because he was just
where
out of control.
Where is he now?
He's still in prison. He's Washtenaw. Washtenaw County.
It says here that in January of this year, he was moved to a prison in a different state.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Darrell Brooks Jr. serving multiple life sentences for attack on the 2021 Waukesha Christmas parade that left 6 dead and dozens more injured has been moved to a prison outside of Wisconsin. Department of Communications records show Brooks was moved from Wisconsin's secure program facility at Boscobel, if anybody wants to correct my pronunciation there, please do, to another location out of state. The DOC can confirm that Darrell Brooks Jr. was moved out of state January 13th, that's of this year. DOC is not able to share any further information regarding Mr. Brooks because of security concerns, yada, 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 which makes me think that they might have been threatening him, or he was being threatening. There has to be a reason why they move him, right?
Out of state, yeah.
Do you think that this guy was kind of like threatening to hurt people, or that people were threatening to kill him, or what do you think?
On him because it's kind of
I don't know. But to get into a mind of somebody who could just go from an argument like that and then just do that so casually is insane.
It's funny.
So
Not a warm and toasty individual.
it's not a warm and fuzzy.
Let's put it that way. That is somebody that you can imagine being very agitating to other people. I actually think that's true of Koberger too, don't you, Josh? That Koberger is a very agitating person.
Yeah, he's
like dangerous to be with others because he drives them, up the wall.
I gave up on the Daryl Brooks trial, but before I did, I'll show you something I did because
did you cover that case on your show?
Yeah. Then I just got completely annoyed with it, but until the end, and then I went back and listened to the. But check this out.
Oh yeah! Oh my God, this was great. I can't believe this happened.
What's this music?
I put music.
Oh my God.
Your call is very important to us. Hang on the line and we'll be with you shortly.
I forgot he did this. I forgot he did that. He's just bonkers.
The way that he does that, it reminds me of that bad joke that says, "Did you hear about the guy who got severely injured playing peekaboo? He's in the ICU." No, but seriously, what the heck? What was that thing of popping out like Gollum like that?
I don't know. I have no idea. That was my way of
that was disturbing.
I was so annoyed by the trial, and I was like, let me see. I'll just do this.
People love the ICU show. It's so terrible.
Right. Well, I have one more question for you.
Kind of joke I'd tell on a date,
It's a good joke. You should keep that.
It would weed out people that I could never possibly get along with.
If the guys in the 70s and 80s actually had some type of communication like the incels today have to talk to one another, you think there would have been as many killings?
Oh, that's an interesting question. Josh, what are your thoughts on that?
Probably not. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I never really thought about it. That's a good question. I don't know.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, the whole point is that these are isolated people who need. I mean, I keep talking about Koberger, right? Well, Koberger, we know, at least, no one's ever conclusively said it was him, but they believe that Koberger went on the internet and was talking about his symptoms, in a sort of sad attempt to find people who understood what visual snow was and all these other kinds of, there is this sort of pathetic quality of longing for connectivity that seems to predate, ultimately going out and being aggressive in some of these people. Look, connectivity to human beings to discuss whatever's bothering you is always good,
Yeah.
It should always help, unless, of course, you get two people together who say, well, if you're interested in that horrible thing and I'm interested in a horrible thing, let's do it together. Let's rock that thing together. But I think supporting somebody through, through anything is always, is always an absolutely fascinating thing. You know, I mean, haven't you ever had a time in your life where you were interested in something that you couldn't find anybody who cared about it, like a movie you love or a
No,
book
you're
you
the only person that had that happen.
Oh, and then you find someone who cares about it, and it's like a big deal, you know?
Oh yeah.
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 Like, I just had that happen the other night. I was in a, you know, because you know, Josh, I'm always talking about how much I love plants. I was in a plant store, and this guy came in who started talking all about his crazy love of euphorbia, which is a type of plant. And I was like, what? You collect euphorbia? And I was like, let me show you photos of all of mine. Your phone, and the next thing, wow, what do you like? He's like, here are my alocasias, you know, here are my colocasias, here are my, you know, and then we became friends, you know, and it's like one of those things where, you know, dorks unite, you know. But there is something about that idea. I mean, you know, getting a bunch of people together who are interested in the same thing. It really helps with the kind of loneliness problem. You know what I mean? I mean, because otherwise, who's there to care when you get excited about something or interested in something, you know? And we're sort of all doing it right now, right? I mean, we're a group of people that are sharing an interest in a kind of obscure topic. I mean, if you took this out of context and you had this conversation at a dinner table with friends who weren't interested in true crime, they would look at you like you had 5 heads. And I bet you there are people in this audience who do that. You know, they're out with their friends and they're like, we're here to toast Marjorie and Alan on their 5th wedding anniversary. And you're like, did you know Gary Heidnick fed a body to dogs? And everybody's like, what? You know, like, I mean, you know what I'm saying? Have you ever been that person?
You've had that happen before?
Josh, I mean, how many parties do I get invited to? And when I get invited, do you think I go? Marjorie and Alan.
I'm the odd man out. They invite me for laughs.
The Alocasias.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, but I'm just saying there's something about human contact that is
it's true.
Important. Because remember, if the whole point is people who are afraid of having unpredictable connections with people, you know, it kind of matters to have a couple of people. I mean, look at Columbine. Okay, those two, you know, Eric and Dill. I mean, when they went around shooting people, they purposely spared some people who they had connected with, right, Josh?
Dylan Savage, one of them, yeah.
Okay.
Rick Brown. There was a couple others as well, yeah.
So why'd they do that?
I think they liked. I don't know. It seemed like they like to play God.
The connection.
Right. The arbitration of who lives and dies, but also the idea that you know you don't have the same hostility towards the person who was kind to you.
Right.
So I mean that's what. So it's all about. I think at the heart of so much of this stuff is human connectivity, and that is why I always say, go out, be kind to people, because you never know when somebody is secretly planning a horrible thing. I had a person that I mean, I can give no details on this, but I had a person that I sent into into a urgent medical care situation who had been planning a violent act. And then that person came back later and said to me that they felt that in many ways my conversation with them sort of saved them because I was there to care at a moment when they had given up on humanity, right? And Lord knows how many people would have been killed.
Holy cow!
Oh yeah, I don't talk about these things, you know, but you have to understand that, you know, when you do this kind of work, you sometimes hear about things, you know, while they're in a fantasy phase, you know, and you put an end to them by getting people help, right, or referring them to where they have to be, right? And, right. So I'm trying to say to you is like, now who knows if that would have actually happened, but the person flat out said to me, you know, it was our conversation that helped. So be kind. It really makes a difference.
Definitely.
You know,
it's easier too.
Don't bully people. Bullying people is, I think, the thing that it drives people to break. People start thinking about taking their life sometimes.
Well, why have enemies when you can have friends?
Well, you know.
Is that true?
Well,
keep your friends close, keep your enemies closer.
You gotta stop.
No,
you gotta stop.
Personally, I have a huge problem. If I had a kid and the kid was bullying somebody, they'd be getting a stern talking to. I have
Oh
serious.
God.
Yeah, I
What would that stern talking to
bullies
sound?
have a special place in hell in my mind. Huh?
Yeah.
What would that stern talking to sound like?
It's an interesting question. Probably I would guilt them. I would try to create empathy for and to explain that they were projecting, their own insecurities onto some poor person that didn't do anything to deserve it. Have you ever been bullied, Josh? In your lifetime?
No, not really.
Were you ever?
Where was I ever a bully?
Yes. Were you the bully?
Nope.
No, I mean I've given people crap before.
Okay.
Yeah.
So my dogs need to go outside. I'll talk to you guys.
Bye-bye.
Take care. Oh, I thought that was your dogs, Josh. No, I mean, I've had moments in life where I've had to deal with people that engage in that kind of behavior. But the thing is, I always was able to take an intellectual distance from it and sort of tell them what they were doing, even from a young age. Psychology has sort of helped me in that way from the youngest days. But I would sort of tell a person what I thought they were doing by engaging in bullying. And there were many times I saw people bullying classmates, and I would sort of go over and say to them, why is it that kid's fault that you've got a pituitary problem and you're too short? You don't have to take it out on this kid. You didn't do anything. I used to tell them off. But to this day, I do that. I have a serious problem with bullies. I don't care for them.
I understand that.
Sometimes they get too much power, and we all have to deal with them.
Pituitary. All right, Melissa, go ahead.
Just a little short story to get the party started. Okay, Melissa.
Yes, I finally found a way to get back in.
How are you? What a nice accent you have. Where are you calling from?
I am from Tennessee, Northeast Tennessee.
Northeast Tennessee, Summer Wells territory.
Yeah, Kingsport area.
Have you called in previously?
I have, yeah.
I feel like we're playing 20 questions, like what's my line or something. Yeah, I think I remember you calling in, and I was just looking on a map of where the Summer Wells case happened, and I realized that's where it was in Tennessee. So, yeah.
My area is up towards, it's not really Kingsport, it's up towards more the Bristol area. It's like a Tri-City area, Kingsport, Johnson City, and Bristol, and then Kingsport and Rogersville are close. So, yeah.
Interesting. Well,
yeah.
A lot of
I know I called in one night and we talked about adoption and when was the best time to tell kids and things. I think we've had that.
I thought coming back to me. Something I've been curious about is what is the sort of socioeconomic status of most people in that part of Tennessee?
I think it varies, to be honest with you. I mean, there are people here where you can drive just a little ways, even down the road. And I do live in a holler. I do. I hate to say it, but I do. And you can drive maybe a mile and then go an eighth of a mile, and it looks like you're in, another area that I won't mention, but where Summer grew up, and there's bad things sold and things, but you can drive another mile down the road, and then there's another like several $100,000 home sitting there on a bunch of land. So
and
we
whatever happened to Summer Wells, we have to understand in the context that this was an area where there was poverty and also a lot of drugs.
I think that's pretty clear, right, Josh? I can't hear Josh, but I think that's pretty.
Just holler, Josh.
Huh?
You can't hear me?
Yeah, I can't hear Josh at all.
Can you, Gary?
I'll translate what he says.
Okay.
Gary,
too bad you don't do sign. You could sign and talk.
Yes, I hear you, Josh.
I couldn't hear him on the other calls either. I don't know.
Do you see him? Do you see him?
I see him. Mm-hmm.
I mean, just in case you don't, he's a bearded gentleman with glasses and some sort of sports attire on, and he's in front of a improv.
We go way back. Yeah, I've been a lab rat for a while.
House. It's like some sort of Christmassy looking house with all the lights.
I see that.
Bill must be through the roof. They've got
that they've had to turn
Yeah.
on the nuclear power generator, like in Christmas Vacation for that
Definitely.
house.
Yeah, definitely. There's been a great deal of snow. If you look at the car, it's all
Yep.
sort of covered on the windshield and gives us an idea which way the wind is blowing. Although there's no wind blowing the flakes, which is sort of
No.
in the same direction of the windshield, which is sort of weird. But we won't get into that.
I
But
watched a movie today, and I actually thought of you. I watched Home Alone, and I
oh,
remembered what you said about Kevin
I
being
thought
a little.
if there were anybody in this world that was going to be home alone, it's me. So, so,
Well,
so
the movie, yeah, and
I would
uh,
I would have enjoyed having those two break into the house. I would have been like, lay down
yeah,
here.
it was funny. You couldn't help but laugh. It was very funny. It's my one of my granddaughter's favorite movies,
I
so
was
I
watching
get to see
something.
it often.
I was watching something about the making of that movie, and it was very interesting. It said that Joe Pesci was so accustomed to cursing uh,
Yeah,
that he couldn't. He almost like had no control over it. It just
yeah.
naturally would roll off his tongue,
Uh,
and so they encouraged him to make that sound that whenever he was about to curse.
Whenever you had to dive in the snow and all that.
Which is really funny. So now when I
I
watch
thought about that, but that makes sense now. Yeah, that makes
of
sense.
him kind of going,
Oh, and
yeah,
then I wanted to ask you one more question, then I'll just have one question in regards to the case. But you're talking about books and things. Did you read the Hunger Games series books?
little bit. It's that's the one that when they made the movie had Jennifer Lawrence, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I have a weird soft spot for Jennifer Lawrence.
Oh,
I
I
think
do too. I love
Jennifer Lawrence
her.
and I would get
What
along.
you see is what you get with Jennifer Lawrence, and I love her. I do too.
Yeah,
Um,
I
well,
like her
they
overall attitude about life.
Me too. Me too. But the reason I ask is a couple years ago, maybe it's been 3 years ago, they had put out they did the 4 movies and 4 books for the series, and then they put out after that they put out it was called The Ballad of the Songbird and the Snake, and that was President Snow's story when he was actually. He wasn't in the Hunger Games, but he fell in love with a girl that
Okay.
ended up winning the games. So I don't want to give too much away, but anyway,
I'm
so
on the edge of my seat, and I want to know
yeah, I don't want to see.
now.
So the last book I just listened to was Hamish's, which if you saw any of the very first movie and they were on the train, he was Katniss and Peeta's mentor, played by Woody Harrelson, I think, played him.
Uh-huh.
And it's his story. It was a very good book, and it's called Sunrise on the Reaping.
Interesting.
Um,
Mhm.
they're all very good books, but if anybody has watched the movies and then want to continue to get more, that movie will be coming out like next holiday season, which is Hamish's story with the games. So,
Okay. But what
but
made you
anyway.
bring this up?
I wanted to ask you just one question. I noticed that when you were in the past, that when you have talked about like psychopaths, you talked about they normally have a very low IQ.
Oh,
And I just wondered
they're
what
all
was
over
it?
the map. They're all over
Are
the
they
map.
all over the place?
Yeah, yeah. There's
Okay, that's what I was wondering about this gentleman. Well, I'm use gentleman very loosely, but I mean, this guy, because I know you said he was very smart on
well,
genius level.
where the IQ tends to be higher in a psychopath is when they're additionally sadistic.
That
So,
kind of makes sense. Yeah.
and it has something to do with that kind of schizoid autistic detachment I'm talking about, which is present in about 50% of serial killers.
Yeah.
Uh, and that type is intellectually curious, and that's what I was trying to say is they all seem to collect things, which I find
They
fascinating.
do.
All the
Hmm.
torturers, right? I mean, John Wayne Gacy collected clown art.
Oh God, I'm terrified of clowns. Yeah.
David
Hmm.
Barcaray collected junk objects, which he turned into torture devices. Actually,
Wow.
Gary Heidnick was the collector of paper money. And you can go on and on. But if you
Yeah.
name a torturer, you'll see that, Robert Burdella. Robert Burdella had an antique shop that he had so many collectibles, right? So, and it has to do with intellectual stimulation. That's
Yeah.
and I think keeping trophies is also connected to that. It's where you get a sense of power and control through collecting.
Hmm.
Now I like to collect things, so I'm very interested in the psychology of collectors, But for me, it's because of the idea of the uniqueness of a thing. I'm interested in, like, there's only one of this thing, it's special.
Yeah. Yeah,
But
I get that very
right,
much.
yeah, but that's
I mean, my granddaughter came home and she was telling us about that she's in second grade. Okay, so they're learning about the settlers and all this, and they're doing different things. Like one day they made butter, just took buttermilk and just they shake it in maybe it's where I live. Nobody else probably does this, but excuse me, we've all been sick around here, so my voice is going back. Yeah,
oh,
they had made butter one day, and then they'd gone to another classroom, and they had washed clothes on um, two washboards. Like the old timey wood with the glass washboards that people used to use back
huh,
many years ago. And I told her, I was like, "Have you never noticed the two that are hanging right inside our door?" And she's like,
right.
"No." And we were on FaceTime, so I took her over there and flipped them around, and I was like, we have a large one that belonged to Chris's grandmother, and then another one that belonged to my grandmother, which was small, and they actually washed. That's what they washed their like under things on. So yeah, it's like there's two hanging there, and it's kind of weird because every time they've hung in our house since we built it, and our dogs have always been fascinated by that corner. And I was like, it's great grandmother's items are hanging over there, and they go to that corner a lot and just look up, like, hey. So kind of creepy sometimes, but
Oh,
anyway,
well, I mean, that's very.
yeah.
But I'm still. Forgive me. I'm trying to understand what made you bring up the Hunger Games.
Oh, you just had mentioned something about when somebody tells you about a good book or
Oh,
that. Yeah. And
okay.
I just finished listening to the story of Haymitch, which was Sunrise on the Reaping, and it's so good. I listened to it on Audible, and it was great. So I just finished it and it was on my mind. So when you said that, I was like, I know that he likes to read, but I didn't know if you'd read or had read any of the books or not. So
No,
they're very good.
I
I
read
mean, they
anything
are.
that anybody gives me. Let me put it that way. I would never discard a book without reading it. But
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
I just, something about a book, that just
Hmm.
draws me in, no matter how ridiculous it is.
Yeah.
But it sounds like, you think these are good. I'm caught up in reading. For some very strange reason, I felt like reading it. I'm reading Dead Zone, the Stephen King
Yeah.
story,
Yeah.
and because I love the movie, the
Yeah.
amazing movie. I mean, if you haven't seen it, I like run.
No, I haven't. I have to admit, even though I love true crime,
Yeah.
and that I don't like scary movies.
No.
I just
You know,
don't.
you know what made me read it? It's very interesting. I was watching an interview with Stephen King, and he said that what haunted him about that book that he had written more than any other is that the villain in it reminded him so much of the president.
Oh wow.
It made me want to read it.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
It was very interesting. It made
Yeah.
me want to go. I said, let me see what he's talking about.
Yeah.
But I
Yeah.
happen to love the book. I think it's terrific. So,
Yeah.
and the movie has Christopher Walken.
Okay. Yeah.
Christopher Walken as the psychic, which is that you remember, he touches the person's hand and he could see, and there's the whole subplot of him helping to solve a serial killer case with a guy who kills people using pairs of scissors.
Oh no, I don't think I haven't seen that.
Yeah,
So
good stuff. And
yeah.
of course,
uh,
Christopher Walken did a parody of it on Saturday Night Live where he was a trivial psychic that
A
would touch
trivia.
your hand and tell you something that was insignificant, like, when you go home,
Yeah.
you're going to get an ice cream headache. Like, who cares?
Like
Like,
Johnny Carson used to put the envelope on his head. I love that. Like I
I
can
love
remember Johnny Carson. I'm really dating myself, but yeah,
it.
when he wore the turban and he would put the letter on his head and he would
Right.
open it up.
The answer before. Well, all
Yeah.
right. Well, it was a pleasure to speak to you. You're a very kind
Yeah. You
person, and
too.
and
And I enjoy your music. Keep it up. Especially, I
oh,
love the Christmas music and the
another one.
lullabies and all of it. I just love all of it.
There's a lot of
So,
lullabies. Well, I appreciate that so much, and thanks for calling. And if you don't have
oh,
the,
you're welcome.
you get it. And although I think it'll disturb you, but but give her a reason, okay?
All right. You all have a great night. I think I'm going to catch the last half tomorrow. It's Eastern time here. So I know it is for you too, Dr. Gary, but
All right. Take
I'm
care.
going to skip out, but I will catch the replay tomorrow, the last of it. And you all have a great night and a Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Take care.
All right.
I love that one of the things I like about that part of the country is the way people speak. I love the expressions and the accent and I love the idiomatic expressions, how colorful they are. It cracks me up. I was talking to somebody the other day from like the deep South, what I call, bless his heart country, where people use that phrase to mean like, he's a jerk,
Sure.
And they said something, they were talking about somebody who was not particularly physically attractive. And they said, whew, she could scare the buzzards off a dead horse. The greatest thing I've ever heard in my entire
my grandpa used to say when he would refer to somebody that would like he can kind of jump scare you or whatever, he said that knock a buzzard off a shit wagon.
Oh, that's a kind of a close variant. I had somebody from down south tell me this is really out there, but they were trying to say that I was like a schmoozer, that I could convince anybody of anything. And they said, you could sell a ketchup lollipop to a woman wearing white gloves. Which I just think is great. But anyway, so do you want to move to the next? I mean, we're probably going to wind up doing two, to be honest. But do you want to move to Robert Ben Rhodes? I think we should.
There's a couple more people that are waiting.
Oh, you want to do calls instead? That's fine with me. We have plenty.
I said we finish up these calls because we'll be over 2 hours, and I have to take my dogs out in a timely fashion.
Well, then people are just going to have to tune in for part 3.
Absolutely.
Sounds
all
good.
right. Let's see. Lion and Lamb. I can't imagine what this is going to be.
Hey, it's Elisa from Alabama.
Hey, how are you?
All is well. Love your body.
You have. I like your voice. You have this terrific kind of excitement in your voice. I like it. It's fun.
There's this guy named well, I won't say his name, but he's on other YouTube channels, and we always make fun of him for his lion and lamb blanket behind him, because he's so adamant about portraying it. But
I have no idea what you're talking about.
I know. Well, he's called in before, but lion and lamb.
You have to get in touch with me. I'll have to talk him out of it. I'm actually a northerner who moved to the south, so I am definitely a strange combination.
Yeah, I just like the way that you speak. It has almost like I could see it being the voice of like an animated character or something. It's a very colorful, fun voice. I like your voice a lot. I think I get a kick out of it.
Thank you much.
That you have a fun voice.
Yeah, hey, I'll go for that. That's a nice compliment.
Well, it is absolutely. So tell us what's up.
I wanted to tell Josh I like the vaudeville show with Daniel Booth. That was funny.
Yeah.
My question was, I was looking at Gary Heinrich when y'all were talking about him, and
meant. Yeah.
Yeah, if I remember correctly, I thought they said that he had like a deformed head, and I thought that maybe that would have made him socially inept, when the girls wouldn't like him. That could have caused a lot of the
like Stewie from Family Guy.
Yeah, exactly, like Stewie from Family Guy. And that also might have caused the rage, that would make him rape and murder.
But he had that predated that were that were aggressive and so forth. It just didn't help. Let's put it that way. It added to the social isolation. I mean, but when you saw the video of him, did he look to you like he had a deformed head?
It didn't look that bad to me. I mean, he wasn't like,
couldn't scare the buzzard off a dead horse.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, well, yeah, he would scare the buzzards off a dead horse. But I mean, it didn't seem like it was quite so pinched or malformed. I just thought maybe he has some brain damage. Did they ever determine if he did or didn't?
Something that people had wondered about, but remember, he was able to get into the military service. He was a schemer. he had, the ability to kind of con people. And so, I mean, it wasn't like he was some kind of like disorganized, out of control person. You understand what I'm saying? I think, if anything, some frontal kind of damage might have had a disinhibiting quality.
Yeah, emotional
If he had been
suppression.
bedwetting after the head injury, it would be interesting to think about if that represented an inhibition problem related to damage to the, to the brain. But that, as I understand it, preceded it. What is it they called him? Football head or something? I mean, I'm sure it didn't
exactly.
make him happy, to be called football head.
Yeah, and that created a lot of social isolation for him, I'm sure, and then that probably made him also, I guess, rageful toward the women, because they wouldn't go out with him. They probably made fun of him, that kind of mean stuff. Which I'm like you, I've always been a champion for the underdog. Even in my adulthood, I've championed people that,
Good for you.
that maybe had some mental disorders or mental retardation that other
Forever
people could treat it bad.
There were ever a time in history when people need to stand up for underdogs.
Yeah.
You are in it. So I think that's beautiful that you do that. That's beautiful that you do that. Good. Now you have that in common with God.
Exactly. Well, that was all I had to ask. It was just on my mind when I seen you were talking about him.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we appreciate it.
Well, I think that's great, and I really appreciate the call, and it is fun to talk to you. You seem like such a sweet soul. So
I have my moments.
Yeah, but it's hard to imagine you with that voice being mean.
I'm not mean. I'm not. Bless your heart.
Bless my heart.
But
All
bye.
right. Take care.
All right. Thank you. Bye-bye.
I don't think she has a mean bone in her body.
Probably not.
It'd be like finding out SpongeBob is a violent alcoholic or something. I don't think so. She has a lovely, charming kind of warmth to her. Okay, next up,
Martha. What's happening?
Oh my God, I'm hearing myself on repeat. Okay, next up.
You there?
What's happening? Somebody's got it.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah.
I can hear us too.
Mute the background. You're good to go.
I did. I muted it.
Very good. Thank you.
What's your name? Martha?
You can hear me now?
Sure can. How you doing, Martha?
Hold on.
That's
Can you hear me?
Yeah, Martha's a name you don't hear too much anymore, huh?
Not so much.
How many Marthas
Okay.
do you know? Yeah.
I'm here.
I know of Martha Stewart.
Yeah, Martha's a name you don't hear too much anymore. I just hear me. Boy, when I hear myself back, I don't like it.
Do you have is your TV on?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. Can you mute your TV?
It's muted.
Okay. We should be good to go now.
Better.
How are you, Martha?
I'm good. How are you, Josh?
I'm fine. Thank you.
Good. Dr. V, how are you tonight?
Just tickety boo. Just great. So tell us a little bit about what made you call in.
Can you guys hear me?
Sure
Yeah.
can.
Seems to be breaking up.
Martha, you
I had a question go back an episode. I recently watched Monster, the Monster series with Ed Gein.
Yes. Yeah.
And my question was, how closely did it portray him and also his girlfriend? And towards the end of it, it seemed to me like maybe she might have become a serial killer herself. I know she liked taking pictures of his victims.
Ed Gein? You're talking about Ed Gein in the
I know she liked taking pictures of his victims.
Josh, did you see the series?
No, I didn't.
Because I didn't watch it. They showed that Ed Gein had a girlfriend.
Yes, Ed Gein.
Ed Gein had a girlfriend that you think might have been interested in killing herself.
It's on Netflix.
Yeah, maybe I have to watch that whole thing to see that. But you know, oh boy, I'm really hearing myself back.
Yeah,
I think your TV is muted.
Yeah, I know that a lot of people feel that
it's good now.
whole chunk of that series, um, they don't agree with it or something like that. And I'm going to have to look into that because I have studied Geen,
Josh, I'm gonna wait
but I'm not aware.
On the other side because I can't
Okay.
hear you on my phone.
Okay, I understand. No problem.
I'm not aware
You
of
guys
him.
have a good night, and I'll listen.
Okay, bye. I'm not aware of Ed Gein having had a girlfriend that where there was a question of her being a serial killer. I mean, I assume the person that she's talking about is what's the Adeline Watkins, right? Wasn't that the name?
I think that's
right, but I don't know of Adeline Watkins being somebody that people thought that. But I have to look into that before I'd be comfortable answering that question. Did the series suggest that?
I didn't watch it. I don't I didn't really I watched like the first I don't know 30 minutes and I gave up on it because I don't know. I knew enough about him.
Okay. Yeah, I think it's best to hold off on answering that. I'd have to watch. It's a good question, but we didn't. I almost wish we had touched on it when we did the episode about him. Where we focused on him. So let's sort of put that over there for now. But I will look into it. I promise.
Yeah, we can discuss that.
Right, Adeline Watkins, unless I'm very much mistaken. So, okay, do we have another caller? We don't have Joey tonight or Linda from Surprise, Arizona. They always.
I don't know where they are. Let me see.
They probably have lives.
It is Saturday night. Let me see here. No, I don't think we have any more callers right now.
Okay. Do you want to talk about another case, or what do you want to do? Because you said you got to.
Yeah, I gotta try and keep him to 2 hours for now because I've been worried about Mucho's bladder. Honestly, he's
been worried about Macho's what?
Bladder.
Oh, what's going on?
Well, about a month and a half ago, he had a UTI, and so she suggested I take him out every couple hours, and I don't have anybody else here to take him out, so I got to be the one to do it.
Okay. But are they acting up like they can't wait to get out?
He just woke up.
Oh, there you go. Well, all right. Well, look, we were going to talk next about Robert Ben Rhodes.
We can do another part to this as well.
I mean, we've got a little series going on now, but I still think that ultimately we will wind up doing something like a Patreon situation, where which I think is, and I can talk to you about why I'd be more prepared to do that now than in the past. So we'll discuss that. But okay. And so any final thoughts then, if you've got to get off?
Well, I was just thinking that that some of that stuff, that we were talking about at the beginning is just, I know that, people are.
Oh, there's someone telling us that they're waiting backstage for us. They're in the private chat.
The device isn't connected, so I can try.
But you were saying, go ahead. That person's telling us they're waiting. So go ahead. You said some of the stuff we were talking about.
Oh, I was just saying some of the stuff that was just brutal. I mean, it's just unfathomable that.
Wait till we do the next two cases. I was moving from least awful to most awful.
We'll definitely get into that. I'm trying to see. Yeah, we can take another call. We can do one more.
But is that person there, the one who's saying that they're on hold?
I don't know. Who is it that said it? I didn't see it.
The person's name is Danielle.
It says her device isn't connected, but we do have a different caller. I can't if the device isn't connected, I can't pick it up. But
okay. Well, let's
how did I know what about? Oh, I took him to the vet.
About the UTI.
Well, yeah, because he wasn't. I could tell he wasn't feeling well, you know. And whenever there's any sense of anything with my dogs, I just take him to the vet right away.
You're giving me flashbacks to there's this very particular place that I like to take, that I would take an animal in my local area that does a very good job taking care of pets. And at the time, my significant other, she and I had a tortoise, and we like tortoises, and the tortoise had to go to the, and so I'm sitting in this waiting area, whatever, and there was this person who was talking about their pet having a UTI at the desk, and they were reading the documentation that said that the diagnosis was UTI, but they didn't know that you're supposed to say UTI.
Yeah.
So they kept saying, just like this, I still laugh about it. They said, "What are you talking about? That Mr. I can't remember the name, Mr. Honeyball or something. I'm making the name up. What are you talking about? Mr. Honeyball has an UTI. I never heard of this UTI. How bad is an UTI?" And they're like, "Sir, UTI. Yeah, UTI. They're going to die from this UTI." So then from then on, I just find that word funny because I picture this person saying UTI, UTI, UTI. Because, when you read it, if you didn't know that it was UTI, you'd say UTI.
UTI.
It's hilarious to me. UTI.
UTI.
Yeah. So they're like, "Wait a minute. How'd they catch this UTI?" I'm trying not to laugh,
But you want to take two more quick? We can do two more quick ones.
That's fine. We can take another UTI.
Marilyn, go ahead.
UTI?
Hello.
Hi.
How are you?
Where are you calling from?
Hi, I'm calling from Springfield, Oregon.
Springfield.
You should have just said Springfield and confused us all. Like which one you meant.
I know where Springfield is.
There's so many Springfields.
That's true too.
Right. Okay. So go on.
What can we do for you?
Uh-oh. Was it something we said?
Yeah, you made fun of Springfield.
No. Come on. Maybe we have Udis. Got cooties or something.
Udi and the Blowfish.
Oh, now you're saying Udi instead of Udi. Udi is even funnier.
Blowfish. I was
that what happened to the caller?
I don't know.
I'm here.
Oh, okay.
There you are. There you are. So go ahead. We thought it was something we said. So continue.
You said anything.
No.
We thought it was
so
he said, not Josh.
No, Josh never says anything wrong.
Well, at least I can hear you. That one caller couldn't hear you at all, Josh.
And I think they had a question for me too. That was the thing.
Yeah, they were nice.
Right. So anyway, I've been listening. I'm a true crime buff and all that. I listen to a lot, but I had some really traumatic things happen, like in my past, with some really crazy people, and I'm surprised I'm still alive, really. Excuse me. But one of the things that happened to me, I've been wanting to call in for a long time with this, is the toy box killer.
Oh,
I was actually kidnapped by him.
By David Parker.
Yes.
What
And
I just, when I'm talking to you, I want to say your name. What did you say the name was we should use to describe?
Marilyn.
Marilyn. Okay, sorry. Yeah. So Marilyn,
it's
you're
spelled Marlyn, but it's Marilyn. It's not Marlin. It's Marilyn.
Marilyn. But are you saying that you were actually in the trailer, or that you were abducted and nothing? Because I'm writing about him as we speak, so that's extremely interesting to me. So go ahead, tell us what you're comfortable to say.
Well, this is this happened in Colorado. And are you still there?
Oh yeah.
Okay, because I'm watching you on the TV. I've got it muted, but I'm on my tablet. So anyway, I'll just and so I was confused because I wasn't sure. This had to be before his days when he had his trailer and stuff. From what I can figure, I don't have a way to like get records or anything. But anyhow, so I was kidnapped by him in his truck, which me and a friend of mine got in willingly. When my friend got out, that's when he decided to pull his little kidnap adventure on me and wanted to take me to Denver. All night long, he kept talking when me and my friend were driving with him. He wanted us to go to Denver with him.
How did you know
And
it was David Parker Ray? Like years later when he was arrested?
yes, yes. I thought it was, believe it or not, I used to tell people, he looked like Charles Bronson, but older. And, and the voice, there's no mistaking. Absolutely. And I was able,
You're saying that he abducted you and a friend simultaneously?
well, we got in willingly. We were hitchhiking home from a party. We had been drinking. And so we were hitchhiking. We always hitchhiked back in the day. This is like back in 1970, about 78 is the best I can recollect. 78, 79. And we got into the truck. I was with a male friend and we were hitchhiking. And he kept telling us, we go to Denver with him. There's a big party. And we're like, no, we can't. Our parents will kill us and blah, blah, blah. And he just kept on and on about Denver. And so anyway, at a certain point, we got to where Steve, my friend, was going. And, he stopped the truck and let Steve out. And Steve was like worried about me staying in the truck. I was like, oh, no, this is an old guy. I'll be fine. And, so we pulled out and we're driving. And he just got right on the freeway and just started headed towards Denver. And, along the way, he's telling me, I realized, okay, I'm kidnapped and he's probably going to rape me, is my thought. And I told him, if that's what you're going to do, just do it. I had a big mouth at those days and I had been drinking. And I just was like, you know what, let's get it over with. And he's like, oh, we will. And he, at that point, started making me do a few things right there in the truck while he was driving down the freeway. And at one point, we're driving, and I'm thinking, I got to get out of this. And we passed a way station along the way, which didn't even look open. But I was like, I have to get out of this truck. And it took me everything I could to get out because we were going at a high speed, like, probably, I don't know how fast we were going, but on the freeway. And I had to hold my legs against the truck door and lean against him and with all my might push to hold the door open. And as I was doing this, he's realizing I'm jumping out of the truck because I didn't care if I lived or died. I knew something. I knew I had to go. And if I had to die on the highway, so be it. And so then as he realized what's happening, he's slowing down. And so it was making it easier for me to get out the door. And as I went out the door, he had a hold of my hair and the back of I had on a down vest. And as I was able to get free and landed on the freeway and began to roll, and when I stopped rolling and was trying to figure out which way is up, when I stopped, I realized I had to run back down the freeway, and he's backing up and I'm running for everything I'm worth. And I got to the way station and he had given up finally because, you can only back up so far on the freeways, somebody's going to see you, a cop's going to, something, so he was smart enough to just stop trying to back up and get me because I had ran over to the other side and was just like running for everything I was worth and got to the way station. And right before I went into the way station, I looked down and realized the only thing I had left on was my bra and my pants and my boots. He had taken, hold on to my vest and my hair and stuff. He had taken that when I jumped out and I didn't care. And I wasn't severely hurt by jumping out of the truck, luckily, you know, I had some skin marks and stuff like that, but nothing major. And, you know, when I got in there, you know, the guy's just, you know, he's just like freaked out, and I'm freaked out. The guy hid me behind the counter because we were afraid he was, you know, I was afraid he was going to come back. The guy was afraid he was going to come back. And so, you know, the guy called my dad. I convinced him, just call my dad. Don't call the police. Just call my dad. And he called my dad, and my dad, who was legally blind, drove all the way up. I was in Castle Rock, you know, that's close to Denver. And he called my dad, and my dad came and picked me up. And we did call the police, but because of me being, well, drunk, kind of in shock, and just completely freaked out, I just couldn't give a correct description of his truck. You know, so that's what happened. And so nothing ever happened to him for this. And this would have been, I'm thinking,
nothing happened to him for anything. I mean, he died before he was convicted of anything.
right. Well, what I'm saying is you know, there was never like an official, okay, we're looking for him, because I couldn't give great enough you know, good enough information, because I was absolutely freaked by this.
Sure.
Well, see, I have to say that what's puzzling and sort of intriguing about this horrendous, I mean, and look, this is a horrendous story, and I'm, you know, what does one say to somebody who's telling this story, right?
Right.
But first, before I say anything about it, are you okay about it, or has it had a major emotional effect on you for a long time?
Well, I absolutely freeze if I hear anything about him. Yeah, I see his picture. Yeah, that's definitely him.
All right,
It absolutely panics me. And that's not the worst experience I had as a teenager hitchhiking. So I'll just leave it at that for now. But so, like I said, I had plenty of trauma in those days. Back then, I mean, we just did a lot of stupid things like hitchhiking, drinking, that kind of thing. You know, I was about 15, I think, when that happened. You know, I can't pinpoint the exact year. There was a lot of trauma. And then my family did a major move completely out of Colorado because they wanted to get me out of that area. And then we moved to Washington State.
Well, because David Parker Ray is thought to have been active from the 50s to the time of his death. And, you know, that's an enormous period of time. I mean, he would have likely been, although, you know, they never pinned anything to him, probably was killing. I mean, even according to his own journals, you know, he started killing at 13, according to his own, you know, recording that was played for victims, you know, that it sometimes was, in his opinion, necessary to eliminate a witness, you know, that kind of thing. I hate his language, but we don't. And so it's not ridiculous to think that he would have been active in multiple states and driving all over the place and doing whatever. But the thing is, there are elements of your story that are so different than his usual MO that it's intriguing. For example, David Parker Ray preferred to operate with a partner, to have his daughter or a significant other or whatever participate, help him. He preferred victims that were taken from very particular places. For example, David Parker Ray liked victims that were from gay bars, female victims from gay bars, because he thought that a female would be less likely to have an STD. A female that had female partners instead of men would be less likely to have an STD. You know, that kind of thing. So he was very careful about not randomly targeting hitchhikers and people because he was preoccupied with that. He was a very obsessional kind of person who thought about things through like that. he drove around in a vehicle where the ploy was, the trick was, the ruse was that it looked like a police vehicle. And he would, the idea was like, you have to come with me, and then you flash a fake badge or a fake siren or in other words, he had the very particular, he had the daughter bop the person on the head.
Right.
There was like a very clear MO. And I am also not aware of him having been active in Colorado. Now, I certainly think something happened to him. I mean, that's no question. I'm not denying that. I just think it's interesting to think about. I mean, is the idea that there might have been a different offender who was who is it possible that this was David Parker Ray, but he was in an experimentation stage where in the 70s he was sort of forming the MO that we all know about. But it's an extremely disturbing story on a lot of levels. The case we were going to talk about next, the Robert Ben Rhodes case, was somebody who had a very David Parker Ray-like quality, but had his torture chamber in the back of the flatbed truck, the truck that he drove around in across multiple states, so that his torture chamber was sort of always with him. David Parker Ray is the type of guy that if he was driving around in a truck, you could bet there was torture equipment in the back of it, that kind of thing. And what I found the most disturbing part of that story, and there was a lot of disturbing elements, and by the way, it would have also been very unusual for David Parker Ray to pick up a male and female together. Robert Ben Rhodes did that, as we'll see when we talk about him. He would pick up a couple, but then like rapidly dispense, of the male, like shoot him with a gun, a shotgun or something, and then torture the woman and photograph her while she was dying, to scare her and get and pique the arousal. But David Parker Ray, I don't know of him having picked up a male and female together and then killed the male or waited for the male to run off or leave or whatever. So there's a lot of things about it but it's possible if it was David Parker Ray, it would be David Parker Ray during the stage of developing the MO. And I would also have to see if there's any tie between him and Colorado. I think that David Parker Ray is being pretty much tied to New Mexico. But that doesn't mean a person can't leave town, kind of a thing. And he had such an appetite, that guy, Lord knows where the wind took him. But it's a very disturbing story. Did you realize that David Parker Ray's partner, Cindy, did you realize that she's out?
Yes.
Yes.
I looked into it.
My co-author on this, on the New Evil, he interviewed her, and I remember when somebody, I think she like ended the interview prematurely or something, and somebody said to him, "Michael, are you nervous that she's out? Because she sort of hates you, it seems. How do you feel about her getting out?" And I remember he said, "What am I supposed to do? Get a helmet?" like in other words, what is she going to do? Put him over the house and hit him? But now he's deceased, so I guess he slipped away. But he had this, there were people who were afraid that she was going to, be mad at him still, But it's an interesting call. I kind of hope you'll reach out privately because I want to talk to you about it a little more. As I said, I'm writing about Ray, and I have access to a lot of documents and things where I can take a look if there was any reason that, because like his journals were so extensive that perhaps we can see if he was in Colorado. Is there some part of you that wonders if it was just like a David Parker Ray lookalike, or do you think for sure it was David Parker Ray?
No, I think for sure it was him. I've looked into it as much as I can, like online and stuff, and to see, was he ever in Colorado, whatever, and then my thought was, like you said, this might have been before he decided, well, I'll build myself a torture chamber and all that in his trailer and do everything he did later. I was thinking that might be when, before he did all that. And, he was starting out and it didn't really matter, his
first victim, according to his own journals, his first victim was when he was 13. And as I understand it, he tied a woman, you have to picture a 13-year-old with an adult woman, He tied her to a tree and sort of engaged in some sadism and then killed her. There was also
Right.
in journals one story about him having two twins, two sisters, if I remember, where he tied them up in like a hotel room and killed one in front of the other. I mean, there's a lot to that story. I mean, I'm hoping with a co-author of mine to put out a book one day that will be like the definitive story of David Parker Ray, because people have asked me to do that because they found that to be like the worst story in the New Evil. And they said, do a book on him because he may have been like, actually one of the most prolific serial killers in American history. Do a book on him. But I do believe that he had scores of murder victims, 60, 70, 80, something like that, because he wrote copiously about his crimes. He just got away with everything because he died. I mean, don't forget, before he died, he was supposed to be going around showing people where bodies were buried. But he died. So, I think, so let's just say if you encountered David Parker Ray, boy, did you get lucky.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I believe that I would not have lived through that encounter. Like I said, I've had a few scary ones, and that was probably the scariest, and not even the worst, but that was the scariest because of how he was. He was a very scary dude, and I knew if I didn't get out of that truck, it's, it just, sometimes you just know. I knew if I didn't get out of that truck, and it was it was a pickup truck, not a big trailer truck. If I didn't get out of that truck, that was it. That was it. I figured rape was only the beginning, and that by what he was saying to me, that's what it was. That's okay. Yeah, I'm going to rape you, but
well,
that's just the beginning.
The one part of the story that really sounded like Ray was the nonchalance with which he told you what he was going to do to you. One of the things that was a thrill for Ray was to meticulously break down to a person before assaulting them what was going to happen and stick to the script. So the person had the terror of knowing what was coming. I mean, you have to imagine a person waking up in that trailer and having this cool, monotonous voice say, first, we're going to engage in this kind of abuse, and then this is how you're going to play along with it. Otherwise, this is what's going to happen to you, and then we're going to do this to you, and then we're going to do a little of that, and maybe we'll have to kill you, but otherwise, and then each thing is happening exactly as was told to you. And
I've heard a lot of those tapes, and that's exactly how he is. Very meticulous, very
and a record keeper, a
meticulously evil. And letting you know that I'm in charge and this is what's going to happen. But you're just going to sit here and you're going to wait. And
Dave, Vernon gave
I knew if I didn't get out.
Right, Vernon Gaybreth, the great authority on serial sexual homicide, who wrote the book literally and did an excellent write-up of the David Parker Ray case because he has all the materials and everything related to it. As he says, he said that the question of what David Parker Ray was, who he was, the answer really depends on who's asking. I mean, if you're asking like from a psychological perspective, he was a sadistic psychopath, right? But what he has said is, but if you're asking from a spiritual perspective, Vernon likes to say, he was the devil on earth. And I understand that, what he's trying to say, because the truth of the matter is that if you take the human capacity for evil and sadism and you drive it to its worst possible end, I cannot think of anybody worse than David Parker Ray. I mean, David Parker Ray, just as a simple example, David Parker Ray trained himself in medical knowledge so that if a victim died during the process of being tortured, he could revive them with electric panels, bring them back to life, and kill them again.
That's wild.
Do you understand what I'm saying? I mean, that's what you're dealing with. I mean, you know, it goes on and on and on and on and on. And if you look at the torture devices that he had, it is not fathomable how a human body could survive them. So I'm trying to tell you, like, if you ever want to peer into the darkest possible place a human being could go, I think you go to the David Barker case. And that is the only case out of all of the ones that I wrote about that I never quite was able to put out of my mind. It never leaves you. One of the people who investigated the case, an FBI agent who went in to, I think, take images of the inside of the trailer, took her life.
Yes, I was just going to say, yes, I read about that. And I read about the trailer. Like I said, I heard his torture tape.
Took her life. I mean,
But
and
it seems to me, you know, that it's even more traumatizing now sometimes
right,
than it was. Maybe, you know, I've let myself, you know, kind of shield myself from it or something.
well,
But
if
now, I mean,
got
sometimes
away
if I just
from-
hear his name, it's like I freeze.
if you really got away from David Barker, let's just say you're the luckiest person in the world.
Yes, I agree.
You know what I'm saying, I
Like
mean,
I said, there's worse that have happened to me too, but none
Right.
as scary as that with him.
Right. so, do you know
And
how
I
his
mean-
last victim got away from him? Do you know, Josh?
No, don't.
Cindy Via Hill, who ultimately only knew what happened to her because she was like reminded of it. You know, I mean, she was like being like brainwashed with like hypnotism and drugs and all kinds of things. Well, they all were. I understand it. She like had to recover a lot of it, but because Ray would do that to wipe your memory. I think he did that to Cindy. She was left alone. She was like padlocked naked in the trailer, and she was left alone with the accomplice. And she managed to get her hands on an ice pick that was being used in her own torture, and she stabbed the accomplice, and she broke out of the trailer and ran naked in a dog padlock, you know, a dog chain and padlock around her neck down the road, and somebody found her. And it was very hard to get anybody to believe what she was saying. You understand what I'm saying? But the reality is when they went in there and found that torture chamber, it was like the stuff of nightmares. I mean, and the guy, I know people in the audience are saying, you know, maybe he lied in his documents, whatever. These were documents that were not intended for anybody else's eyes. We're talking about his private journals from childhood. He meticulously detailed decades of crime. And I have, you know, access to this, you know, so I, you know, but I'm trying to tell you, like, that's all going to come out. Stuff anyway. So go ahead, Josh.
I got to wrap up. I don't.
All right. So let's have a fascinating conversation.
Absolutely. And you wanted to get in contact with her as well, right?
Yeah, you should reach out to me. It's not hard to find me. You know, just Google me and you'll see my email there. But write me because I want to discuss with you and the person I'm going to be co-writing with. Maybe we'll do an interview with you or something, and we can get this story down. You know?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, if you don't mind, if you're comfortable with that.
Yeah, no, it's like I said, I've been wanting to call for a long time and thought, I'll never get through. But, you know, I got right through, which, you know, I guess it was meant to be. So, but yeah, I think there's just a lot of questions I have. And yeah, I think it's probably therapeutic to talk about it and find out more. And, you know, yeah, I would be happy to talk with you more about it. Absolutely.
Yeah. But just be open to the possibility that we may conclude that we can't tie David Parker Ray to that time and place, so that there's the possibility it was some other horrendous monster. You understand what I'm saying? But the fact that, you know, your conviction is clear that you think it was David Parker Ray. But I think it's clear something happened. I just don't know who it was. But whoever did it, David, you know, certainly had some sadistic kind of awful quality, because, you know, he was nonchalantly telling you he was going to assault you. And there's no question that that is a horrendous experience. Now, Josh, I'm sorry we kept you.
No, that's okay.
I'm sorry. Show, and and I'm sorry if I went on and on. Okay.
You did not. I
All right.
appreciate
All
your
right.
time. Appreciate you coming.
Get to the dogs. Okay. Bye.
Thank you guys so
All right,
much.
thank you guys. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Bye. Bye, Josh. And Josh, let me know when you want to do the rest. I'm
Absolutely.
open.
We'll do it soon.
Yeah, even in a few days or next week.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. All right. Bye, everyone. Bye.
Bye.
Merry Christmas.
Bye.
Bye.
All right, everybody. Thank you so much for being here. I appreciate it. We'll do a follow-up on this here in just a couple of days. That way, I don't mean to abruptly end the show, but anyway, I appreciate you guys so much, and we will talk to you next time.